Okay, today we're going to be talking about migration, Italy and Europe. Italy is a country that has a reputation for being a little sceptical about Europe and all of the problems relating to migration that there are at the moment. So we're going to have a look at some statistics and some documents, and we're going to have a conversation about what we really think about Europe, people moving in Europe, and what advantages and disadvantages this might have. Okay? So, we're going to start with a description of migrants. They are generally of small stature and dark skin. Many are smelly because they keep the same clothes for weeks. They build shacks in the suburbs. When they get closer to the city centre, they rent expensive apartments in crumbling buildings. They arrive in two looking for a room with a kitchen. After a few days, they become 4, 6, 10. They speak incomprehensible languages, maybe antique dialects. Many children are used to begging, often in front of the church. Women and older men plead for mercy with petulant and plaintive tones. They have many children who they struggle to maintain, and they are very united amongst themselves. It is said that they are dedicated to theft, and if stopped, they can become violent. Now, this description could be anywhere. It could be modern. It could be now. It could be a description of the situations that we see, even in Reggio Emilia. But we'll have a look at the next part. Our women avoid them because they are unattractive and wild, and because of widespread rumours of rapes of women consumed when returning from work. The powers that be have opened our borders, but above all have not been able to select from among those entering the country to work and those who think they can live on gimmicks or criminal activities. I propose that preference is given to those from Veneto and Lombardy, slow in understanding and ignorant, but more willing than others to work. They are suited to homes that Americans refuse, so that their families remain united and they do not dispute the salaries. The others, those who have reported much of this first report, come from southern Italy. I invite you to check the documents of origin and repatriate them. Our security must be our first concern. So when you hear this bit, you realise that we're not actually talking about today, and we're not talking about migrants in Italy. Who are we talking about?
We're talking about Italians.
We're talking about Italians. We're talking about Italians who moved to the United States in the last century. This is a report from the Inspectorate of Immigration in the US Congress on Italian immigrants in October 1912. The description is very similar to what we see today. It's very similar to the perception that we have of immigrants who come to live in our country. So it's a very good idea to remember that we have all been in this situation. Italians have been emigrating to other parts of the world for many, many years. Do any of you have relatives who live in foreign countries?
My uncle lives in America.
In America. When did he move there?
About 5 years ago.
Ah, okay. Why did he go?
because he wants to travel, and he found his wife is American.
Ah, okay. Does he work there?
Yes,
Mhm.
he does the commercialist,
Mm-hmm.
and she has a family with a son.
Okay. Very good. What about you?
My uncle lives in Russia,
Oh.
and she got married and a Russian girl,
Mm-hmm.
so she moved in Russia.
Okay. Does she work there?
Honestly, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anybody have any relatives from the past? Maybe a grandparent, an uncle, somebody who...
My aunt lives in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
She moved there in 1978, but she doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Do you know why she moved?
I don't know.
You don't? Okay. Does anybody have relatives who moved maybe to the United States or South America?
Oh, I had an uncle that moves in America,
Mm-hmm.
in Boston, about 100 years ago.
Ah.
So it's very.
So you could have been one of these. Quite possibly. I don't know if anybody has seen Titanic, which shows you a very good example of how people used to move to the United States at that time. Anybody else?
My cousin moved to New York about 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Why did they leave?
And he just wanted to find a job.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to find a job. Yeah. Okay. What about foreign people who live in Reggio Emilia? Migrants. We call them migrants if they've moved from another country. I myself, obviously, am a migrant, living in Reggio Emilia as a foreign person. How many of you had school friends, maybe in primary or middle school, who came from another country? Lots of you. Filippo?
I know Nigerian guys
Mm-hmm.
in medium school
Mm-hmm.
who went from Nigeria.
Okay. Were they first generation
Uh,
or were they born in Reggio Emilia?
he born in Reggio Emilia.
Mm-hmm. But his parents had moved here?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The same.
The same way, were you at school together?
No, but similar situation.
Uh-huh. Anybody else?
Greece.
Greece?
I knew a girl at middle school that she has born in Greece, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and her parents are Greece too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Emily?
I know a boy from primary school. He's from Burkina Faso,
Mm-hmm.
and his parents work here, so they moved here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else? Nobody? Okay. What do you think when you see migrants in or hear foreign voices when you walk about the town? What kind of images do you have? Do you feel curious? Do you feel threatened? What does it make you think? Oh, you're not concerned.
They are strange.
It's strange.
The language is strange.
The language, yes. Yes. Some of them have very funny languages, don't they? Do any of you have grandparents, maybe just a grandmother or a grandfather, who has a nurse? Nobody. Because very often in Reggio Emilia, people come, mainly women, from Eastern Europe, for example, to look after old people when they are on their own or when they can't look after themselves. Nobody. Okay, well, we'll look into that in a minute. Now we're going to have a look at some statistics. The number of foreign nationals living in Emilia-Romagna. I couldn't find any statistics relating specifically to Reggio Emilia, so I found some to do with Emilia-Romagna. And you can see that there's a list here of all of the countries where the foreign citizens who live in our area come from. And you can see that top of the list are Romanians. And they make up for 16% of the foreign population. Then Moroccans, 11%. Albanians, 11%. And then Ukraine. One of the interesting things about this table is that it also differentiates between men and women. The number of males and the number of females. The Romanians, who make up the largest population, have 36,000 men and 52,000 women. So there are more women than men. The Moroccans have more or less the same amount of men and women. If you look at the Ukrainians, there are 6.5 thousand men, and then 26,000 women. And this is what I was talking about before, about the nurses, about the women who come to Italy to act as nurses and carers for people. The Chinese, more or less the same amount of men and women, they make up 5.5% of the total. But we recognise Chinese people. We recognise Chinese people because they look different, don't we? And especially in the town centre, especially towards Ospizio and the train station area, there are a lot of Chinese people, so you may see them on your way to the station. So it gives you the impression that there are an awful lot of Chinese people, but they are in fact only in 5th place. The Moldovans, the same thing, there are an awful lot of women. And then the list goes down and down and down. An awful lot of these people have been settled here for a long time. And some of the countries in this list are European countries. Not the typical European countries that we would think of. France, Spain, Germany, the United Kingdom. But in any case, countries which are part of the European Union and therefore have the free movement of people. Romania is part of the European Union. Romanians can freely come and settle in our country. So it's interesting in any case to see the very, very broad range of different nationalities that live here. Okay? This is a list, on the other hand, of all of the people who live in all of the European countries. And you can see that Germany is the country with the largest foreign-born population. Germany is also the largest country in the European Union. So it's to be expected that numerically there are more citizens from other countries who go to live there, numerically. So what you have to look at also is the percentage of the population, not just the physical number of people, but the percentage that they count for within the whole population of the country. So, Germany has the most people, but those people make up 14.7% of its population. Whereas, if you go down the list, there are other countries, okay, Luxembourg is a special case because Luxembourg is a very, very small country, and it's also the place of international exchange and finance and involved as well in the European Union institutions. So it's obviously got a large population of foreign-born citizens. In fact, there's 45% of the population of Luxembourg was not born in Luxembourg. But in any case, if you look at the other countries, you can see that Cyprus has 20% foreign population. The Netherlands has 19%, which is much more than Germany. Okay? And this chart is also divided into people who were born in a European country who have moved to another European country, and people who were born outside of the European Union. And it gives us a very clear picture of how much movement there is, how many possibilities we have as European citizens to move and live and work in another country. So it gives us a very, very good opportunity to be able to have different experiences. Okay? Now let's have a look at asylum seekers. Asylum seekers are people who come from areas of the world which have crises, places in which it is dangerous to live, people who are threatened by war or by some kind of discrimination, which allows them to request asylum in a safe country. There's always a lot of talk on the television about asylum seekers, refugees. This shows us how much actually happens. Okay? Where asylum seekers go, where they want to go, where they look for asylum. And you can see here that Germany is by far the country with the most requests. It has twice as many as Italy. Italy's the next country. Why do you think people want to go and ask for asylum in Germany?
Germany in the past has had a lot of colonies, so many migrants that were in Germany colonies go to Germany, maybe because they know the language, because of their past.
Yes, true.
Okay.
Matilde?
Okay. I think that also in this period, go to Germany is easier than Italy, because in this month migrants can't enter to Italy, but so they have to go to Germany.
Bear in mind, this is from 2016 and 2017, so it's not talking about just what's happening at the moment. What do you think, Emily?
Maybe because Germany is a very rich country.
Yes. Germany is a rich country. Germany has a lot of work. Germany has the possibility, it offers work to people. So it's a very appetizing country for asylum seekers to go and live in. Why is Italy the second country?
Because it's like a bridge to reach Europe. If you want to reach European states like Germany, France, Sweden, you have to pass through Italy or Spain.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's the nearest country. For obviously for maybe the North Africa people that maybe can just run away from war.
Exactly, yes. Italy is geographically one of the easiest places for asylum seekers to reach. Okay? And European law says that you have to ask for asylum in the first country you arrive in. So that's why Italian statistics are quite high. Okay, this graph here, on the other hand, shows not the number of people coming in asking for asylum, but the decisions that have been made by each country on the applications. So, the orange line is refugee status. It means that people who have requested asylum have been granted asylum. The blue lines are other forms of protection, and the little red bit is asylum given on humanitarian reasons. The most important thing about this graph is the yellow line. The yellow line indicates all of the applications that have been rejected. Okay? So, it's one thing to look at the number of applications that have been made that we saw in the last graph. It's another thing how many of those applications are actually accepted. And if we look at this table, Italy, which was second place in the first graph, suddenly goes down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th place. Because it has accepted as refugees only a very few. It has given other forms of protection and humanitarian protection, but it has a very large percentage of rejections. So we always have to remember, it's one thing how many people apply, it's another thing how many people are granted asylum. Okay? And in fact, this graph, this map made by UNHCR, who knows who UNHCR are? Anybody? UNHCR is the United Nations organization called the UN High Commission for Refugees. It's an international organization which manages emergencies and refugee situations around the world. And it produced this map to show us how many refugees live in each country in Europe per 1,000 inhabitants. Okay, so it's not a total number, but it's a percentage, which makes it easier to understand the relative differences for each country. Italy, 2.8 per 1,000 inhabitants. Germany, 11.7. Spain, 0.4. That's not many, is it? And yet you've got a country like Sweden that's got 23.8. That's an awful lot, okay? Belgium 3.7. The United Kingdom isn't doing very well with 1.8. France 5, Switzerland 11. And then poor old Malta down here, the little island in the middle of the Mediterranean. Not a very large population, a very easy place to reach. 16.8, that's an awful lot of people. So we have to remember the bigger picture, okay? This is as far as immigrants moving into Europe from outside is concerned. Let's have a look now at some statistics about Italians living abroad. How many of you would like to go and study abroad when you've graduated, when you finish school? Yeah? You know. You would rather live in Italy. So that's all of you. Okay, that's pretty much all of you. That's good. Why do you have this desire to go and study or live abroad? Olga?
Because I like to travel. I like traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to experience schools abroad.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Julia, what do you like about the opportunity of experiencing different countries?
I like meeting new people and the opportunities of learn about new culture and many things.
Would you move and stay, or do you think you would just like to travel and then come back to Italy?
For now, I would like to move and stay.
Do you have any specific country you would like to go to?
United Kingdom.
Okay. It's a nice place. United Kingdom. Top countries of residence of Italians. 11% of Italians who have moved abroad live in Switzerland. Not too difficult, it's close by, they just cross the border, good work opportunities. The second one is Germany. Again, work opportunities. And the last one is the United Kingdom, 8%. 8% of Italians who leave Italy, say in modern times, go live in the United Kingdom. Most of them are satisfied with what they're doing. Average age, 42. More or less half and half men and women. More or less, most 57% are in a relationship and 43% are single. That's quite a large number. That means lots of people go. Young, looking for different opportunities. As far as income is concerned, how much money they earn. Most of them earn much more money than they would have done in Italy. 72%. And most of them are employed in a company. So they don't go and set up their own business, but they go because they have a work opportunity in a company. Now this is interesting for me because it shows what possibilities we all have. Well, I mean, I could go live in the United Kingdom, but then I've already been there, so. But you have the opportunity to experience different kinds of countries and have work opportunities because you are members of the European Union. And so you have all these opportunities. Okay? We've looked at numbers, we've looked at facts and figures, we've looked at Europeans moving around, we've looked at non-EU citizens moving both to Italy and to other countries in Europe. One thing is numbers. Another thing, and one of what I think is one of the biggest problems that we have today, is a question of perception. It's one thing to know the numbers, it's another thing to think what the situation is. We aren't always given the right numbers. The average guess as a multiple of the actual number. Answering the question, what percentage of the population do you think are immigrants? The Japanese, when asked this question, guessed 5 times more immigrants into their country than there actually are. That's an awful lot, 5 times more. Poland, 4.5. South Korea, 3.7. Hungary, 3 times more. And Italy, 2.9. That means that on average in Italy, people think that there are far more immigrants. There are 3 times more immigrants than there actually are. Now, I think this is really important, because when we talk about worries about immigrants, and we talk about the idea of our country, of Italy, being threatened and overrun with immigrants, it's because we think that there are far more than there actually are. Okay? So it's interesting to think about your perception and not just really trying to understand the circumstances, the numbers, and how they really do affect our lives. Okay, what do you think causes racism? There's a whole list of words here which could be reasons that make people racist. What would you choose?
Fear, anger.
Just one. Fear. Why?
Fear because maybe most of people are scared about the strangers that comes from other countries.
Okay.
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Why?
Because most of the people thinks that if you are an immigrant, you are bad. So people don't want to, aren't curious and don't want to learn about cultures of immigrants.
True. Okay. Someone else. Filippo.
I think unemployment. Because if you don't have a work, you are angry, and you're angry with people who work, and a lot of migrants do some work that Italian people don't want to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point. Altro Filippo.
Difference because lots of people don't like the difference between other people. So this could be a point that somebody can upset or somebody can just hate it.
Yeah. You in the middle there.
I think jealousy because there could be people who are jealous because there are people who work said Filippo, I think.
Okay. Who else? Emily.
Maybe history, because, for example, people of color were slaves in the past, and maybe that can cause racism.
Very good point.
Culture, because I think that sometimes people are scared or they don't accept a culture different by them.
Yeah, people are always a little bit wary of cultures that are different. People.
I would choose ignorance, and also I would link it with history, because lots of people hate immigrants because they don't know their history, so they don't know why they're coming here, and I think that's a big cause.
Very good. Okay. Anyone else?
I think class. Because today we have sometimes example of things in class, sometimes between students. Because you aren't Italian, so you are bad. It's wrong.
Yeah. Okay. What's the answer? What do you think the answer is? No matter which words you choose, there is no excuse for racism. Okay, thank you very much.